Welcome back to the Oroville City Council meeting to open session, where we are reconvening from closed session where direction was given and no action was taken. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Councilmember Draper?
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent. Oops, sorry. Ugh, I'm having, sorry, Scott. I'm going to retake the vote. I apologize.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I have a first is Hatley, a second is Smith. Councilmember Draper?
Yes.
I apologize. What? The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open this up for public communication. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak?
Good evening, Oroville City Council. It's nice to testify in the matters of corruption that are going on here in Butte County. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any written communication on this item.
At this time, we're going to end public communication. Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 5, please.
And I'd like to pull item number 6.
Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar with items 5 and 6 pulled.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar with items 5 and 6 pulled.
Councilmember Draper?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Mr. City Administrator, you pulled item number 5 of the consent calendar. Do you wish to comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to provide clarity to everybody that could be watching and the council. It was brought to my attention that this item could have been read that the city was leasing property from PCP. We are not leasing property from PCP. We are leasing property to PCP. Previously, the agreement was for $250 a year. It was an agreement that was written some 30 years ago. The new agreement is for $10,900 per year. So it is substantially increased, and we are leasing property to them, not from them.
Does anyone wish to comment on that? Do we have any comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any written communication on this item.
What's the rate increase based on just other leasing?
No, there's no comparable parking lots that are charged parking lots like this. So what we did is we had an appraisal done of the property and what the depreciation of the property would be, and then we figured that over the course of the number of years it would be to see what that fair market rental rate for that property would be. So that's how the new number came about. It was a little higher than where we're currently at, but we negotiated to this number because they originally did all of the improvements to the unimproved property.
So you have negotiated this number with them?
Yes, we have.
Okay. The reason why I'm concerned is because, from my understanding, I believe they had, you guys are probably, Leo, and you guys would probably know more as far as, I think they closed down the other one, right, Tom, or do you guys know? They had a couple of these plants. I think the other one got shut or closed down or relocated or whatnot. Just would hate to lose, there's a lot of jobs that these guys provide for our community.
Yeah, and I don't believe this will impact
Okay.
them whatsoever for this particular situation.
Are there any other comments? Having none, looking for a motion to accept item number 5 of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Councilmember Draper,
And you understand my concern, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to. We don't want to run them out of business over this.
Over a parking lot.
Because really, quite honestly, this is the totality of what they bring to the community is much
Right.
greater than the money that we would achieve by this.
Exactly.
the
Nope,
motion
absolutely.
passes with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay, item number 6 was also pulled from the consent calendar from Councilmember Smith. Do you wish to comment on this item?
I do. So I was just looking for clarity, looking at the Art Commission and the recommendation of the artwork on the new Starbucks building number 2. In reviewing of this, it talks about an optional badge. And so what I'm concerned about is, are we allowing Starbucks to determine how that's going to be, how the art's going to be done, or are we requiring this badge? Because I think the badge is a necessary piece to the overall project. And so I'm just looking for some clarity on that, because I could not get it by looking at the packet.
I can give you a little clarity on that, since that's the one committee I'm on.
Councilmember
And-
Draper?
Yeah, they are definitely planning to put a little plaque on the artwork that would be information about the mother orange tree and its historical value in the community. And so, yeah, they're going to be doing that.
Okay, so I think that's important. It's a lovely piece of art, and I really like it. I just
Yeah.
thought that was really important, that plaque is applied to the project, and it's not just, well, if we like it, we can do it. If not, we can't. That's the way it reads, and I might be misreading that, so.
No, that is correct. And that badge, they actually had discussed removing from that third panel and moving it closer to the entrance, so you see it as soon as you walk in, and so it would be on a wall adjacent to the entrance.
So, but the badge is going to happen?
Yes, it
Just it's an
will.
issue of where it's going to be applied?
Yes, it'll be a
That's
part of the
option.
artwork.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
all 3 of those panels that you see there
Uh-huh.
will be on the exterior of the building.
Great. Awesome. It's a very, very lovely piece of, and yeah, good job.
Are there any other comments or questions on item number 6? Any comments from the public?
Mayor, I haven't received any written communication on this item.
Having none, I'm looking for a motion to adopt item number 6.
So
of
I
the
move that we
consent
adopt
calendar.
item number 6.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Draper,
Yes.
the motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
At this time, we're going to open the meeting up for public hearings. I have one item, number 9, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oroville related to the adoption of district boundary election maps and establishing a sequence for each district election. This is our first reading.
Good morning, or excuse me, good after, let me try that again. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This matter has been before the council several times. It is regarding the transition to by-district elections. We have had the 4+ meetings required by the Elections Code to receive comments on potential maps, to present several draft maps and to receive from members of the public their own, maps to be submitted to the council. At the last council meeting, or the last time this matter came before the council, we received direction to proceed with map number 3 as amended. There was a small amendment to that. And my apologies that the map did not make it into the agenda packet itself. It is on the website with the amendment. And we do have Tamina, I think, online, and she can share her screen if we'd like to if we can post. Oh, they're on the dais. Okay, wonderful. So there are two things that we recommend doing at this point. In order to implement the by-district elections, an ordinance needs to be passed by the council. We have prepared an ordinance. It is there in the packet. The ordinance does reference that map, which will be an attachment. But there are two things that need to happen. The first one is we need to determine a schedule of when the districts would come up for election. This is going to, as we've mentioned before, these districts are highly unlikely to ever be voted upon with individuals running in them because a census is coming out just by the turn of the decade. We will have when we receive the census, the election code provides for a mechanism whereby you readjust all of the districts. So we had to adopt these districts, and then we will then readjust them following the census. And there, of course, is upcoming for the council a decision to be made on annexation of a large section of territory, which will greatly increase and greatly impact the lines as they're currently drawn. So what we would recommend is that the council establish select 3 of the districts to be up for election in 2022, and then the other 3 districts will be up for election in 2024. It would be somewhat logical to have the districts where the 3 council members who have 2 years remaining on their term, or 2+, a little bit more than 2+ years remaining on their term, to have those districts be up in 2022. And then the others come up in 2024. But that's at the pleasure of the council. That's only just one thing that was, in my mind, a logical thing to do. But certainly that's a policy decision for you all to make. And then the second item that needs to occur is to introduce by title only the ordinance and waive the reading of the ordinance, and then we'll bring it back for a final vote 30 days from now. The next council meeting, at the next council meeting, it would come back. And then it would be in effect 30 days after that. This action would finalize the district, the transition to by-district elections at this point until the census comes out. I mentioned before, we do have Tamina on the line if there are any questions about the maps, if there's any concerns related to that. But other than that, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions that you or the council members may have.
Well, it looks like Vice Mayor Thompson would like to speak.
In regards to the map, I think we've already beat that down completely. So I think that's settled. And just in regard to the voting zones, which districts to come up first, I think your suggestion is the most straightforward one. The council members who their term ends in 2.25 years, that those zones be the ones that go up for election. Can you remind me, because I'm not exactly
I know
sure
where they
on
are.
which zones.
District 3A, 3C, 3D, which would be council members Hatley, Smith, and Pittman.
Yep.
And that works for me.
Works for me.
Yeah, I suspect, just to follow up on your comment, I suspect that the district that will change the most will be 3A, because
Right.
that's where we've got a large territory that's being annexed, assuming that goes through, of
And
course.
so, right, and so if that goes forward, then most likely this map is just going to be changing in the next year or two, probably by that election anyway, from my understanding.
It will certainly be before the next election.
Yeah.
It will be after the census comes out, but before the next election. This is one of, I apologize for taking your time, but I'll share just one brief frustration, which is in this transition to by district elections, there is no provision in the elections code to say, well, we don't really need to create a map that we're never going to use. So let's hold off until we have the census, and then we can create the map one time. It is what it is. It's a quirk in the
Make
law.
way too much sense.
Yeah, it's a quirk in the law, and it is what it is. And I have since accepted that, as the fate of, of a government agency attorney. Sometimes you do things that don't have the effect that, that they should. But this is one of those instances. I suspect this map will never be used because we will have a census come out, and I'm assuming that the government will do their duty on time and get us a census on time. If the census is delayed till 2023, then obviously this map will be used. It'll have to be. But I assume that we'll get a census fairly on time, somewhat reasonably on time, and then we'll be able to adjust our boundaries and make them comply with the Voting Rights Act.
Great.
I do have a question.
Councilmember Smith, would you wish to speak?
Yeah, so a lot can happen in 2 years. I'm completely in agreement with, I think, what's already been suggested as far as the election cycle within the districts that have been established here. But a lot can change, as you've already mentioned. And so as it relates to the cycles, for an example, one of us could move and change area, or as these boundaries shift, dynamics could certainly change. So that being said, could we revisit then the areas that have been designated as far as a
Yes, you can.
cycle? Okay,
Yes, you
so the
can.
whole thing then essentially becomes back up to relitigate,
Yes, I wouldn't use the term relitigate, I would use the term adjust.
readjust, okay.
Yeah, you certainly will be able to adjust after that. Yeah,
I think we would have to because the decision we're making today wouldn't apply to the new map.
of course.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask any questions? Do we have any comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any public communication on this item.
Having none, if no one from this dais wishes to comment further, I'm looking for a motion to adopt ordinance number 1846.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 1846.
I'll second that.
And if I could actually have you amend your motion to include the schedule that you referenced.
Exactly, so moved.
And you were the second?
Yes.
Are you amenable to that? Okay. Sorry, the parliamentarian me I can never keep that person quiet.
Councilmember Draper?
Yes.
As we've discussed, it just feels a little bit ridiculous that we're even doing this because we're just practice for when we do it for real.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you, council.
At this time, we will close public hearings. Moving on to regular business, item number 10, financial analysis for fiscal year ended June 30, 2020.
Good evening, Mayor Reynolds and council members. What you have before you tonight is a staff report for our unaudited year-end ending June 30, 2020. We are ending the year with a $6.5 million surplus. Most of this is attributed to the $2 million we received from the state to mitigate the campfire expenditures that we have. And also because our sales taxes came in way higher than expected. We just didn't ever have a full year of our new district tax and we didn't know what to expect. So we budgeted 4.2 million and we ended up with 6.5 almost. So we really exceeded our expectations on that. We talked about that a little bit at mid-year review. We expected them to be a lot higher, but then the pandemic hit and we really just didn't know what to expect. But they continue to come in very, very strong. So I think we talked about that before too. We seem to be in kind of a bubble compared to other communities that are seeing significant losses due to the pandemic. So we're very fortunate in that respect. So we did kind of allocate the surplus for council's consideration. We had a few ideas in mind. If the council is open to these ideas or if you want something different, just let us know. We were proposing to put $3 million into our capital projects fund, and then we would be bringing projects back to you for consideration. 1.5 million, we're asking to be reserved, just like we did last year, in order to build up our reserves in case we don't have such a great year. Asking again to put another $1 million towards our CalPERS unfunded liability. That's really going to help us in the long run. It'll save us interest, and it's just a fiscally sound idea. We also are proposing $600,000 to take care of a couple of loans for you to consider, and $300,000 to satisfy a housing loan. So with that, I'll let you ask any questions.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just step in there on the spending plan just a little bit. The housing, the city housing fund payback, that was an economic development loan that was made several years ago that we cannot clear off the books until we pay that back. It was a loan that was created from prior administration many years ago. That was, the idea was that the increase in sales tax would pay back the loan. Well, that's occurred but never been tracked, and now in order for us to clear it off our books, we need to repay the fund that we borrowed the money from originally. So we're putting the money back into the housing fund, which will be program income and will be put back into our housing program for first-time home buyers, home improvement loans and things like that. So that's where that money is. The $600,000 is a debt reduction strategy that we're using to get rid of debt. I mean, that we've been carrying for a long time for various projects. The PERS is pretty straightforward. The 1.5 million for the general fund reserve adds to it. That'll bring us to a 23% reserve, which is a very healthy reserve. I believe the GFOA recommends 17 or 18%. Ruth's the expert. She just tells me this stuff and I just repeat it. But it's 23% makes us very healthy, and we're going to continue to increase that reserve with the council's blessing, because we feel that it is something that we need to weather ourselves through economic bad times as they come at us, because we've previously had a lot of those, and we don't want to return to where we've been. The $3 million, I thought it was important that you know what our intent is with that money. The $3 million, we have multiple projects throughout the city that need to be done. One of the biggest projects I believe that we have is our Feather River Trail that we're currently working on with the goats. One of the things that we absolutely need on that trail is restrooms. There are no restrooms on the trail, so we would like to allocate approximately $400,000 to $450,000 for Portland loos along the Feather River Trail, is what I'm calling it, the levee, Centennial Plaza, the Veterans Memorial, and one at Bedrock Park because the bathroom was burned down there. So we would like to allocate that toward that project. We'll be bringing that back with specific detail for you and specific costs. This is just kind of an idea of where that $3 million number came from. The other project we'd like to have included is a slurry program for our streets so that we can improve the streets and also make them last longer by treating them with a slurry topping and extending their life until we can get to a point where we can actually replace them. That's a $500,000 project. We would like to set aside $750,000 for the Table Mountain walkway wall area to include the wall, the walkway, the wall into the roundabout, and all of the necessary stuff to complete that project. So we like to put that money there. We'll bring it back when we get a cost on that and let you make the final decision on that. Another project we have is digitizing of our old records. We'd like to get all those digitized so we can get those into properly storing them into a computerized way. We put $300,000 toward that. That will include all departments in the city. We are looking at an electronic door system so that when you go through the doors, your ID will open the door, unlock the door for you. But it also identifies, who went through the door, what time they went through the door. It's kind of a little bit Big Brother-ish, but it's a way of tracking people in and out of the building who was there, and it also keeps the doors locked and unlocked automatically. We'd like to set aside $400,000 for the municipal auditorium for any additional projects that may be in there. As you'll see tonight on the agenda further down, there are a couple of those projects. That's what that money is intended to be used for, is for those types of projects. that are on there. So we would be using it for that. You'll also see one on there for police radio. We'd like to set aside $430,000 for the police radio. Instead of coming at the council at random times throughout the year requesting random needs of the city, well, we felt it was better to incorporate this list into this allocation of these funds as we disperse them throughout the budget so that you have a better idea of what you'll be hearing from us and what we'll be bringing back. So that's kind of our spending plan for this money. What we're looking for is council to, tell us that, you like the plan or you'd like to see the plan changed or what you'd like to see from us.
Madam Clerk, do we have any comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any written communication on this item.
Having none, no comments from the public. Do we have any comments or questions from this dais?
I do.
Councilmember Pittman? Councilmember Draper?
Oh, thank you.
I wasn't sure if you had a fly there or what was going on, but because I can't see your hand.
I clicked on the little hand icon before. Nobody notices that. So
Yeah.
I'm just going like,
I can't see.
at any rate, I just wanted to add that I thought it looked really excellent. I really appreciate the fiscal conservatism here and the things that are being done to be cautious with the public's money. I really like that. The other thing I wanted to comment on is I've received a lot of communications from constituents about there being no restrooms along the Feather River there. And so I'm really happy to hear that the Portland Loos will finally be purchased. And do you have any idea, Bill, of a timeline for that?
My goal on this would be what we got going on in the Feather River Trail right now is a multi-phase project. Right now we have the goats in there just trying to clear out the heavy vegetation that's in there. Once that's done, I'd like to go back down through with crews to clean up all of the trash that's in the river and also along the river's edge. Once that's done, I'd like to clean up the brush and the logs and just the debris that have been deposited from years of flooding through there. So, and then once that's done, at the same or simultaneously, we'd like to order these Portland Loos and locate them appropriately on the levee. So, to answer your question with that long-winded explanation, I hope to by next spring have all of this done with the Portland Loos installed.
Okay. I know Bob Hewitt, among many others, will be very glad to hear that. Thank you.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, Ruth, probably 20 plus. The city made a loan. Move the PERS retirement system from the current status up to the 2% at 50. Has that loan been satisfied or is that still outgoing?
Has not. The city did purchase a pension obligation bond in 2017. We have 3 payments to go.
Okay, so we're close.
So we're getting very close.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other comments from this dais?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Smith?
Just on the goats have gotten a lot of Facebook time. They are popular, so good job, Bill. Is someone going to give us a report on the Oroville Housing Department, the LAC, Loan Advisory Committee, and what we're doing there? Okay, so because it's a part of the budget report. And I just wanted to point out that for this last year, we've only had 1 foreclosure. And so in previous years, we had 3 consecutively. And that's just kind of a snapshot, again, as to the overall health, I think, of our community. And that's good, which really coincides with the chamber. We do an independent financial report, and it kind of confirms and stays in line with what you're reporting, which is good. And I'll talk about that at my time at the end. But I just want to point that out that, we are in a bubble in our community and all the numbers reflect that. So, why that is, we could probably talk about that all night, but I'm just glad that we are.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Councilman Smith, if in the back of your packet, buried way in the back, there is that report you're specifically looking for regarding the Oroville Housing Department. It has the number of foreclosures for since.
Yeah,
Okay, there you
yeah,
have it.
I know I have it. I
Yes,
was
sir.
just pointing out that we've only had 1. I think that's
Yep,
great.
no,
But
it's-
only 1 foreclosure, and then here we are in really tough, difficult times,
Yeah.
right? And yet, previous years, we've had much more than that. So that just, I think, is encouraging to the folks out there that it's not as bad maybe as it might seem or as it might feel. And that when you look at actual foreclosures and impacts on people's lives, it's not as been as severe as what we might be hearing in the media or in other places. And that's just my point.
Yeah.
I'd like to also comment on that. That's what happens when you require a minimum credit score to get a loan. The foreclosures go down. Okay, if there are no more comments from this dais, looking for a motion to recommend staff to allocate the fund balance.
So move.
I'll second them.
By the way, Ruth, you always do a great job. Thanks for helping serving
you,
with the
Ruth.
city.
Councilmember Draper,
Yes.
Want to vote?
I do.
the motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Moving on to item number 11, award of contract, 2020 pavement rehabilitation project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here tonight to discuss the 2020 pavement rehabilitation project. Our recommendations for staff, or for council to approve and authorize Resolution 8905, which includes 2 agreements. Number 3334, which is $1.991575 million in pavement rehabilitation, came in under, quite a bit under actually what we thought we were going to spend. And then additionally includes agreement number 3336, which is the project management for this, which is just under $100,000 at $99,578. The budget for this comes from Measure U dollars and SB1 funds as well. Actually, I think we're not going to have to use beyond that because we had thought we were going to spend just under $3 million. It came in at just under 2. So that's those two. I think those two are the fund balances are going to cover it. So anyway, just if there's any questions, I can.
Do we
answer
have any
them.
comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just want to list the streets that you're going to be paving so everybody is aware and the council is too. It's going to be Brookdale Drive from Foothill to just before Westdale. We'll be doing Hilldale Avenue between Foothill to Glen. We'll be doing Pine Oaks Road between Oradam and Oak Avenue. We'll be doing Washington from Bird to the railroad tracks and Montgomery from Bird to the railroad tracks. We will be paving Pomona Avenue from Feather River to 6th and Veach to Pine. And then we will be doing Feather River Boulevard, this is the big one, all the way from Safford Avenue to Oradam Boulevard. So it's an aggressive paving program. There's a lot of paving in there to do. So, our engineering and our community development department's done a great job on this, and I'm really excited about this project to finally get some roads fixed.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any written communication on this item.
Do we have any comments or questions from this dais? Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. The one road that I hear, and I know you've heard it a million times, but is there anywhere or anything in the foreseeable future for up there off of Zephyr and all of that? Because all I hear about are, and you've heard it too,
Yep.
and
I know it is in the paving program. It's further down the road line. Apparently, these roads were in worse condition than that. But I think what we can do, Councilman Hatley, with the dollars and savings that we have, is we can go into that area and look and see what needs to be done and get some, if not permanent fixes, some temporary ones until we can get to paving that area up there. Because I have heard the same thing that you have regarding that particular area.
thank you.
Any further comments from the dais? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 8905.
I'll second.
Councilmember Draper,
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Moving on to item number 12, engage Precision Concrete Cutting to provide a condition audit of the city's 90-plus minus miles of sidewalks and additional infrastructure features.
It's me again. Good evening, council. Yes, Precision Concrete Cutting is a member of our JPA. And so due to that, they've offered up this program at quite a discount. It basically achieves 2 things at once. We have a city barrier removal plan for our ADA that needs to be updated. We never completed our sidewalk assessment of that. So this will accomplish that for us. Additionally, it's going to give us an assessment of the condition of that we can match up with our pavement management plan in the future and do areas side by side. So we're not going back into an area where we just were. So we hope to put those side by side in the future and work on that. So this is what this will do for us is cover both of those. In looking at it, when we had looked at having just a strictly an accessibility company do an audit of this type, it was almost twice the price. So this is actually a really good price on this, and being a part of our JPA, we can sole source it as well. So that's where we are on that.
Madam Clerk, do we have any comments on this item from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any written communication on this item.
Do we have any comments or questions from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to recommend staff, to direct staff to engage Precision Concrete to develop sidewalk condition assessment.
So moved?
Second.
Member Draper?
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Moving on to item number 13, municipal auditorium change order for hidden dry rot.
This one here is we're in the process of doing the re-roof on the municipal auditorium. Due to the dilapidated condition of that, we've run into some dry rot in the front facade, which is part of this. There's 2 change orders involved in this. The total for that is $39,000 to repair that. There's some structural members that need to be repaired in there, and they're pretty rotten. The second part, actually, we had planned on including in the scope of work for the interior portion, as we're getting ready for the YMCA to lease that. But due to the fact that it was caused by the roof leaks, we thought in order to be more expedient with the process of getting the work done, we would include it as a change order on this, as opposed to bringing it back as new scope on the next RFP that we have out and getting bid on that. So that's why that's in here as well, to try to get that taken care of in the upfront fashion. So I can answer any other questions if you have any regarding this.
Are there any questions from the public on this item, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any written communication on this item.
Are there any questions or comments from this dais?
Just quickly.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as the impending rain, I'm sure you've taken consideration into that.
Oh, they're all buttoned up, yeah.
Okay, good.
The roof is 95% done. So.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to recommend staff to approve the change order expenditures.
So moved?
Councilmember Draper?
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Item number 14, authorization to award contract for municipal auditorium lighting, sound, and video upgrade to North State Audio Visual Incorporated.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. This item follows the August 11th approval from this body to submit or publish an RFP, a request for proposal for the audio and visual lighting to be upgraded in the municipal auditorium. Currently, what is existing in the municipal auditorium is very old and outdated, and we aren't even sure if much of it functions properly. So this would be an update to go with the updated interior. And also this would help out the YMCA because they do put on productions and plays and things of that nature. So when we put out the RFP, we had a mandatory walkthrough. We received 9 attendees to this walkthrough, which we were pleasantly surprised by. And for the bid, we received 4 proposals. One of the lowest bidder had an incomplete proposal. It did not have an electrical component to that proposal. So the second lowest bidder did have a complete proposal, and that is what you have here for you this evening. So, any questions?
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any written communication on this item.
Mr. Mayor, if I could I just add one thing to this? After speaking with Councilman Smith this afternoon, it became pretty important to me and pretty clear that we need to reserve some room in this. So I would ask that we increase the budget from 72,000 to 80. The increase of the additional dollars would be for shielding and protection of the video player that would be on the ceiling above the basketball court and the speakers that are out there, because with young people using the facility and basketball and other things flying in there, we do not need a piece of expensive equipment damaged, because it was a competition to see who could hit it the most amount of times before it came off the ceiling.
Mr. Attorney, are we able to move forward with increasing that amount without it being agendized?
I believe the answer is yes. You've got
10%.
Yeah, you've got it within the 10% leeway on the contract. And this is not a separate project. You're including it as part of this project to protect what you're installing.
Okay.
Short answer is yes.
I just want to hear it out loud.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Don.
Yes.
I think,
Vice Mayor Thompson.
sorry. There's quite a hike for, I don't know how you pronounce it, INIM Group. Did they mention why their proposal was $335,000?
It is very high dollar equipment, from my understanding, and I can defer that to our IT specialist, Tyson. He knows more about the audiovisual world than I do.
Good evening. Yes, it was just high dollar. It's a different quality of gear. It was something that you'd put in a place that you're gonna have high-end concerts or touring type gear, is what it looks like.
So are you fine then? What's the brand of the stuff that we're using? Is it, knockoff stuff that's imported from somewhere, or is it good
No.
quality stuff that we were looking forward to this being 20, 30 years that we can be fine with this?
Yeah, no, I mean, audio and video equipment doesn't really last
Sure,
that long.
especially
but yes,
video.
it's going to be, it's not your low end. That was one of the things I had requested is don't make it that low end. We want to be just above that, but not be real high dollar stuff. So every piece of equipment that's on there is good stuff.
I had,
Just
Counsel-
as a follow-up, because
Okay.
my concern is, well, for longevity, but the second is, making the venue, we don't want people to not use it or somebody not want to come in because it's cheap equipment.
No, this is good stuff. This is stuff, actually, some of this is stuff I'm going to be putting in our church that I personally go to. So this is good stuff. And a lot of it, if you look in the proposal, there's some of it that's actually in a rack. So a lot of it's going to be protected as well and can be utilized from a tablet in a lot of cases as well. So,
Some of this stuff on this order, or the same equipment, same type?
yes.
I figured I'd tease you a little bit. Councilmember Smith?
yeah, just to follow up with what Mr. Legrand was stating, and definitely the equipment in there, the municipal auditorium is dysfunctional. I can attest to that when we were using the facilities for the campfire relief and volunteering, so definitely needs to be dealt with. But my concern, and I think that's already been expressed, it is pretty expensive equipment, and just and having some experience with equipment, by the 6,000 lumen, mine's only 2, by the way, on the projector, laser, pretty cool. and nice and bright.
Yes.
But also pretty sensitive equipment. So I'm thinking, kiddos in there, YMCA, balls,
Right.
expensive equipment. And then also having a policy, because you mentioned the YMCA utilizing that equipment, as you know, repairing or replacing lamps and those types of things is pretty expensive. So I think we should, in addition to this, have some sort of policy development as far as, the expense of that equipment, replacement, batteries, microphones, how all that's going to be handled and maintained and protected. I just think that we need some thought into that, especially with kiddos, having some experience with schools and kids and equipment. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, so I think we just need to have thought into that.
Right. Well, one of the things, if you look at where the projector, they actually showed kind of where that's going to be set, and that'll actually be farther in on the stage. So the existing screen is on the front of the stage, which means you either have to do rear projection or come from the front out where the basketballs are. But what they did is they moved the screen to the back of the stage. So again, you're kind of protected lighting-wise, so it helps out the projector and viewability of that. But it also sets that projector inward out of the way of a lot of these basketballs. So some of that was, the speakers, those ones specifically, I believe they've got a hard grill on the front as well. So when they're sticking out there, they're going to be protected. I mean, you get someone in there who's trying, they're definitely going to be able to damage something. But it is more sturdy gear or placed in a place that is less likely to be hit by something.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I appreciate this, and I appreciate this equipment. I'm certainly in support of it. But just to add on to what Councilman Smith said, I'd like to see also who is going to be responsible for this equipment in terms of the city, and/or as we look to another lesser here in the YMCA, who then in the YMCA and the city is going to be responsible for that equipment. I just want to have that as policy so that we don't lose it in the transition of the building being operated by a different body, and still we have that electronic equipment that needs to have, oversight by someone. And I don't care who, just someone, so that we make sure that equipment stays at 100% efficiency for, the 20 years that we hope it'll work.
Right.
Vice Mayor Thompson, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here, that we're all kind of, the protection of the equipment. Is there going to be, I'm sure the YMCA is going to have some kind of insurance for broken equipment. I think we're all looking at the same thing of, hey, if we buy this and it gets broken under the use of the YMCA, and if they just come back to us and be like, it's your
liability
equipment,
insurance.
replace it. We don't want, obviously, to come into that
Part
kind of
of
situation.
part of our lease with them would be is that they are responsible for that. If they damage or break something like that, it's much like anything else in the building. If it's
Right.
broken, not just from natural wear and tear, they're responsible for it. We do have included in that lease multiple times a year inspection of the facility where this equipment would be inspected, be verified that it's there. But if they do break something, they are responsible. As far as insurance, I'm not sure you can buy insurance for malicious damage to something by, I'm not really sure, but they are the
Covered under
financial
their
responsible
liability
party.
policy.
And final, I think we're beating this pretty hard, but as a city, are we supplying microphones and cords?
That
for the
will be a
system?
part of this.
So in that, my recommendation is that there be a few microphones and cords that are set aside, that aren't used for general purpose, but are, when the city needs to use it, we're not going to, and finding a mic that, oh yeah, it got broken, but we have our own stuff that's there locked away somewhere where we can use it if we need it.
Good idea.
If there are no more comments or questions from this dais, I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to award the bid and sign a contract for municipal auditorium lighting, sound, and video upgrade to North State Audio Visual Incorporated.
So I move that we give staff authorization to make this deal with the company you referenced. I can't see them right here.
North State Audio Visual.
Yes, North State Audio Visual, thank you. To an increase of $80,000, to also have staff maintain a set of equipment, microphones, minimum 2 and cords for city use, and to develop a use policy.
Councilmember Draper.
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay, item number 15, upgrade dispatch radio consoles.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. This item is for the request to upgrade our dispatch radio consoles at the Public Safety Department. The radio system is obviously the lifeline for police and fire personnel, and our current one is over 10 years old and is failing. Every time it has a failure, it reduces the safety of our personnel, and we need to replace that. I know we've talked about it before, but there's a lot of technicalities on it. I got our IT manager, Tyson, here to answer any questions on the technical side of what we're going to do or what the problems are, if there are any questions on that. In doing this, I know it's a high price item. In doing this, what it's going to do is it's going to allow the dispatchers interoperability with other agencies. That became a problem during our previous disasters we've had. We haven't had the ability to do that. Once this, if this is approved and it gets implemented, then it'll allow interoperability between all the agencies in the county and even agencies outside the county, where our police and fire personnel will be able to communicate with them. There is some plan or discussion regarding switching our radio system to the county's system. And if we were to do that, this would be one of the first steps in it. But even if we decide not to do that, this is still something that needs to occur to correct the problems we're having with our radio system currently. I don't know if Tyson has anything to add on that.
Sure. So just so you know, with the current system, we're at the point with it that it's old. It's got physical cards that are failing on us, and at this point in time, we can't find parts to repair it. So if more parts start to fail, we won't be able to bring the system back live again. We'll be done. From a dispatcher communicating on the radio, they would end up using a handheld at that point in time.
Mr. Mayor, this is a critical piece of safety equipment for our staff and also for our community. This is an absolute has to be done. We're buying repair parts off of eBay right now. That's unacceptable. I mean, this is something that I know this is a high-priced piece of equipment. I think the chief's done a good job putting this together and pushing this off as long as he could, but it's time that we address this issue at our public safety facility. You have the money in your capital equipment replacement fund. You just put that there as part of one of your earlier actions. So the money's there. You're ready to do this. This is a critical piece of equipment. To me, this just is something that just absolutely has to be done.
Do we have any comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any written communication on this item.
Looking for comments from the dais. It looks like Vice Mayor Thompson wishes to speak.
The current equipment, you keep saying it's old. Can you quantify that?
So most computerized pieces of equipment are sitting on what you might see as a PC or a server type hardware. This is a chassis with old cards that I don't know how long they made this product, but something you might see back in the 80s or 90s as far as the way they're designed. It's been a very bulletproof system up to this point, but it's been in play a long time. I don't know if that answers your question.
So 30 plus years-ish.
The technology that's being used, yes.
Councilmember Draper, did you have your hand moving?
No, I did not.
Okay, all right. I didn't want to miss you again. Councilmember Hatley, please.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. On on this new equipment, it'll record and everything just like it's always done, correct? Is that, so the calls and the communication back and forth, we'll still be able to capture that?
Yes, so that's actually a whole nother piece of equipment that's in the data center. So this one is for the dispatcher being able to talk over the radio, but all of the communication it'll still integrate with what we currently have for the recordings that you're talking about.
Okay, so you're not gonna be back next meeting
No.
going, oh, by the way, now we need to buy $500,000 worth of recording equipment?
No,
Okay.
the recording equipment, the state has funding for 911 upgrades, specifically to the 911
Okay.
call center, and that was upgraded at that point in time.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they were compatible. And I also see on here where we need to, on the lower tower antenna, up on the levee, that needs to be repaired. At one time, we had a problem with something with our radio system that's out on Lincoln. Was that ever addressed, and was that all taken care of?
I'm trying to think back to the issue you're referring to.
I think the issues you're referring to was the copper lines that were used to connect with that, and I think that's old technology, and I believe we're using a data line now, so are we off the copper?
No, so we're still on the copper. Part of bringing some of these things with this upgrade as well, and then we've upgraded the handhelds to the officers, is the idea of moving to the county for their new trunk system. It's big enough to handle multiple agencies. And so we're still currently on the copper lines. We still have problems with them. But things like this dispatch console system need to be in place, and then also an upgrade to some vehicles, which is something totally different that's coming through. Once that's in place, then we can make the decision whether to go with the county or not. But that's something that we do need to discuss, but these other pieces are much more important at this point in time.
And the copper lines that we're talking about, and just so for clarity, it's not the city's lines. These are
Correct.
lines that are copper phone lines that actually belong to AT&T, that they're using an antiquated system that they just haven't updated. The bunkers get full of water in the winter, and they cause issues with our copper lines. So
Correct.
that is something that's beyond our control on that, because it's not anything that we're doing or we're not upgrading or we're failing to do. It's AT&T just has maintained a very poor system.
Yeah, and I'm not in any way saying that we're not doing something. I
Right.
just wanted to ask because the tower, it's out on Lincoln,
Right.
I know you know where it's at, and I'm sure you do too. We were having problems with the building or something with rodents and different things messing with our communication or ability for the transmitters and stuff. So I just wondered if that was, if we were all up to date on that, we were ready to go.
Right now, I'm not familiar with a rodent issue, so I don't know about that. The issue that I've dealt with that tower specifically has just been with the copper lines at AT&T that we lease from AT&T.
Okay.
As far as our gear is working.
Over the last, couple decades, there has been issues with rodents in the building. There's been issues with everything from people shutting the power off to the building to the propane tank running out of fuel, and there's just a bunch of things. I think in the long-term picture, I think for the community, the best thing to do is to move to this trunk system with the county. That will also save us eventually down the road from every 10 years having to replace a lot of this equipment. We'll just get into a maintenance agreement with the county where it costs us a certain number of dollars each year to subscribe to the system. It will keep us all interoperable and make our officers' radios functional anywhere they are in the county, not just in the city of Oroville. So it's, it'd be a great improvement, but that's a discussion for another day. But yes, we have had those issues, Councilman Hatley, and we address them unfortunately as each one comes up.
So I heard you say that next would be upgrades in the cars?
That's a different, you want to talk to that?
That's something that's separate from this, what Tyson mentioned about the handheld radios for the officers that we already did. Another project that's in the works is replacing the radios in the police vehicles. The reason you haven't heard anything about this is because I'm working with OES to provide the funding for that. And it's a project that's ongoing. And in the event that goes through, it's going to be 48 to 50 radios that will be put into the vehicles, but it will be provided by OES funding.
When one of these police vehicles is wrecked, do they transfer the equipment to the new vehicle, or do they just simply
Now,
discard
if
it?
the police vehicle is crashed, for example, the last police vehicle that was crashed and was totaled, it's still sitting down at the courtyard, and we've turned that into, we take everything we can off of it. The radios have come out, we reused the lights, I mean, we even reused the rear view mirror on one side of it. So to answer your question, if it's salvageable, it gets repurposed and used into the vehicles that have not been crashed.
Are there any other questions from this dais?
Quick question.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I understand things weren't out, and I was around when that stuff was put in. Not to say I'm old, but anyway. The consoles, they were not the top of the line when they were originally put in. If they're still the Motorola consoles that were, oh, they're different, okay. And I'm in support of this proposal. I would also add the thought pattern here, just because I'm aware of it, but we actually, as a city, do own property from the police fire facility out to the cemetery antenna by way of the railroad right-of-way. So as a thought pattern, if we ever wanted to install our own fiber line in that property, in that right-of-way that we own, it's a possibility. And that's one of the big problems with the AT&T lease line, is it's all overhead. And it simply is subject to the weather patterns, and as we've seen that problem. It just might be a thought pattern, because the value of that cemetery is topographically great. And whatever we do in the future, county line or ours, there might be a thought pattern, because we could actually install that ourselves at our own property, just down the line. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Just a quick comment and an observation. Since my wife and I lived in the rural area before moving into town, and so we've gotten in the habit of listening to the scanner, especially during fire season. And just thinking about public safety as it applies to communication, man, oh man, is that important. I know Councilman Pittman and Hatley both have been in public service in the area of public safety, and so they probably really appreciate this. But from where I sit, it's just part of the cost of doing business. And to me, having the best equipment where our law enforcement or firefighters are not having to worry about communication, that's public safety 101 to me. And man, if it was $1 million and we had to spend it, I'm just saying, we're relying on you to make that evaluation and to bring the best presentation and project forward. And so to me, it can almost spare no expense when it comes to some of these very, very critical areas as it applies to all of our lives. So I just look to you, you're the experts, and not a blank check, of course, we have limits, but I just want you to know that we want the best possible equipment for our community, and I'm backing that 100%.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from this dais? Having none, looking for a motion to authorize the upgrade of the dispatch radio consoles and the first year's maintenance and the cost amount of $423,546, and the levy antenna repair of $6,105.20. Recurring maintenance costs for the dispatch consoles will be budgeted.
So moved.
I'll second, or Mr. Hatley.
Councilmember Draper.
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you.
On item number 16, emergency contract with Duke Sherwood Contracting Incorporated for clean out of drainage inlets throughout the city.
Hi, good evening again, Mayor and council members. This Staff report comes to you this evening following the North Complex fire. That fire took off on September 9th, and the Bear Fire spurred off from that fire. With that fire came hazardous smoke and an excessive amount of ash over our city and other areas within our county and region. That ash is a concern to our drainage inlets and to our public works supervisors. We're afraid that when the rainy seasons come in, that ash will clog up our drainage inlets. And so we have deemed this an emergency. We have spoken with Duke Sherwood Contracting. They have vac trucks available in their fleet, and they have proposed for 2 crews working 42 days to vac out our 1,323 drainage inlets for the total of the $251,370. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions from the public on this item, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any public communication on this item.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add to this too, the city will be seeking reimbursement from Cal OES or FEMA for this project as well.
Councilmember Hatley wishes to speak. Public.
Okay. When I'm looking at this, when was the last time the storm drains were cleaned?
I don't have that answer for you. It's been a while, I know that.
Okay. And I noticed in Mr. Sherwood's proposal here that this $250,000 is based on being able to dump at SCORE, at the SCORE yard. Has anybody talked to SCORE?
To my knowledge, I'm not sure, actually. I can speak with Sherwood to discuss that.
Well,
Are you aware,
let
Leo?
let me tell you.
Do you know if they talked to SCORE?
What's that?
Do you know if Sherwood spoke with SCORE?
That was part of, the way I read it, it was that was
A part of it, that they already spoke with them.
Responsibility to secure the rights to do that. Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what he said.
That's part of the agreement.
Well, I know what's part of the agreement here, but, so if something comes up, because SCORE is not going to violate their permit, I can assure you of that. And so if they can take, say, the water, the liquid, but they're not going to, and then it's going to have to be, if it's coming out of those drains, because people dump everything, as we all know, oil, everything else down those storm drains. They're not supposed to, but they do. And I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff in there. And if this stuff's vacuumed out and taken down to SCORE, who's going to pay for the testing? And if they can even drop it down there, and then who's going to pay for the hauling it off to where it has to go? So what I can see is that this is going to come back and be a whole lot more involved and more costly. And if there's no mandated thing from Regional Water Quality Board out of Reading, who oversees this area, there's no mandates that we have to do this ash, and because that's up to us. And with that being said, we have 2 vac trucks. We have 7 or 8 employees in the sewer department. I'm kind of curious, and then if it rains this weekend, there's just a lot of questions that I have before I'm willing to go for a $250,000 contract that we may or may not get. And since there's really no mandate, whether it's deemed an emergency or not,
Right.
By the state or the feds over the fire, is FEMA may come back and say, there's no mandate, you don't have to do this, you did it, it's on you. And now we've just spent $250,000 out of our general fund, and on the hopes that we might get reimbursed. And there's not even, a guess right now whether you will or not. So I'm just thinking that, and it's going to rain supposedly Friday and Saturday, so
Right.
I'm just
to pull
trying
our
to justify
crews,
this in my mind,
Right.
how we're gonna spend this kind of
To
money.
pull our crews right now, we do have approximately 6 staff in the sewer department, but to pull them for a 42-day project would be a strain on their current regular schedule. So we don't want to do that. $190 an inlet is not actually a bad price for vacuuming out these drainage inlets, but I do understand your concerns, and your questions can be addressed, and I can get answers for you.
Okay, because the way it stands right now, I have too many questions to vote for this.
Okay.
And I'll just be honest with you.
Right, no, it's
because
understandable.
We're talking about a lot of money. And till we can figure out who's gonna pay for all this testing, and we're not gonna come back and get another $100,000 bill on top of everything else, because all of a sudden now there's a lot of testing that has to be done. It has to be screened. Only liquid can be dropped at the plant. Can't be any rocks, can't be anything in that. It can just be liquid. So that's what concerns me, and so that's where I'm at on this.
Okay.
Well, if I could offer, the risk you run on this of not doing this is pushing all of that into your pipes, and then you'll be jet rotting out all of your, all of your drainage, which is going to be much more expensive than doing the vac out of the DIs. The DIs need to be done. They haven't been done for as long as I've been around. I've never seen it done. I've personally seen some that not only have, buildup of ash, but also people have used them as depositories for garbage and anything else that you can imagine has been shoved down there. So, whether we get reimbursed from FEMA or a Cal OES, this is something the city needs to do. The concern is if we put the ash into the pipe, you're going to, $250,000 is going to seem like it was free. I mean, by the time we get done jet rotting these things all over the city. So I really highly recommend that we do move forward on this. Time is of the essence. There are so many variables to this that, and I do absolutely understand the concerns. I mean, I get it. I don't like doing things like this, but I'm extremely concerned about the sludge that would be pushed into those pipes. I have seen it around town after the ash was there. It's in our DIs now. You're right, we are going to have rain. I hope we don't have enough to push it into the pipes and cause us a significant problem. I'm also concerned about an environmental problem that may occur if we do push it in there, because, it goes back to the Gordon Graham saying predictable is preventable. Well, we knew that we had that buildup of ash, and then we shoved it into the river. So we can have environmental claims made against the city at some point because of that. There's just such a plethora of problems that come along with this. And, I don't have no perfect answer for you, Councilman Hatley. I wish I did, but I think it's really prudent to move forward on this. I understand your concern about the money. I really do. I mean,
Well, I talked to the Regional Water Quality Board today, and this is not a Mount St. Helens, event. And the lake is covered with ash. So it's in the river. So to come back and say that we're going to be fined for something like that for the ash, well, that's very questionable, because when the other fires occurred, that never happened. And when the fire occurred in Paradise, we had ash, we had things, so we weren't concerned then. And it just seems like we're in a real big rush round, and that's a lot of money to me, and that's why I'm questioning it.
Sure.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that I've been involved with the water board and their fines. I agree with you, Councilmember Hadley, but I also would say they're unpredictable. And I would certainly not count on them not fining people. And I agree with you, it wouldn't be very consistent, but I've had the experience where they have.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I'd like to add to the discussion too, and I certainly understand Councilman Hatley's concern, but I also look at the bigger picture that once it falls in that drain inlet, it's ours. Those are our drains. The city of Oroville maintains and operates those drains before they go into the river. I think we have a responsibility to make sure they're clean and clear. And whether it's ash, whether it's debris, whether it's whatever, I don't know that we annually clean out those inlets anyway. And I don't think so. So I go beyond the idea of ash. I go to this fact that if we had high water or flood conditions, That's one of the reasons why we've had problems before in our drainage system. I know of one building that plugged up so bad, we were running a boat down through the hallway right at the old Oral Dam crossing. That building right there, we actually ran a boat down to take everybody out because the drain plugged up. So I see this as, yes, it's necessary now. It's a great idea to be done. I'm sad that we don't have an annual maintenance plan to open up and clear out those drains. I also happen to know that many of those drains have become the housing unit for a different population. And if nothing else, we need to make sure those drains are gonna work. I'm being a little facetious here, but that's the other reality. And yes, it is a lot of money, but I can't say to our public, are those drains gonna work? Until we actually clean them out and make sure they're gonna work.
So to what level, are you finished?
Yes, thank you.
To what level of vacuuming out these drains is Sherwood Contracting going to perform? Are they just after the ash, or are they after everything in there?
You know, I didn't have the conversation with Mr. Sherwood. Our Public Works Supervisor did. I can ask him what the extent it is. I apologize for not having that information this evening.
I have had that conversation.
Oh, thank
I
you.
have had that conversation, Mr. Mayor, with our Public Works Supervisor. It's gonna be a clean DI. Everything that's in there, whether it's weeds, trash, whatever rocks, are gonna be removed. I mean, because there's no way to, get to the ash without removing the other things as well. So they will be cleaned DIs. We'll have 1,300 clean DIs in the city. As clean as a drainage inlet can possibly be.
And not to disagree with you, it's a valid question, because the ash is like powder, like flour, and you actually could vacuum that out, and the
Yes.
rocks and that remain. I know I did all my properties,
Same here.
so that I contributed to part of your DI problem. You're welcome.
But once it is wet, it does coagulate, and it creates quite a nasty paste, and so that is part of the
When's he
concern.
expecting to, if we approve this, when's he expecting to get started?
I'm hoping they can mobilize as soon as possible, but we haven't received a date for that.
I would,
Hopefully before the rainy season.
I would make sure that it's very clear of what the agreement is with SCORE, because I know that SCORE will not pay for testing.
I've made note of that.
Vice Mayor Thompson?
Thank you. I guess, I see the need, and I understand and appreciate the putting this together. Definitely valid. I think my only, area of frustration is we had a meeting within the year where we met with all of our department heads and asked them what they needed, how many employees they need. And I hear you say that we don't know when the last time the drains were cleared. And I do remember the conversation, and my memory is not the best, but I do remember the conversation with him that he didn't need any more employees, that they were fine. Is that error, or is that accurate?
My recollection.
But there should be, the city should have a plan to not just, wait after a fire. These drains should have an annual, not all of them, but,
Right.
this chunk and then this chunk the next year and whatnot.
And
Maybe-
going forward, we've discussed having this being a routine program and doing a few drain DIs or drainage inlets at a time. This is taking so long because it's all DIs at
Right.
one time.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I get, and again, it just goes back to.
And to address your question, Mr. Vice Mayor, yes, what we are doing is, once this is done and we have clean DIs, the idea would be to transfer the responsibility of the DIs to the sewer department, paying them out of general fund to take care of the DIs, because they do have the vac trucks, the personnel, and the proper equipment to do for the underground pipes. So there is a long-term thought about this. We very much agree there should be a plan for this, with personnel in place to handle that. These are critical pieces of equipment to the city so that we can ensure that our streets don't flood, or at least do the best we can.
I guess it's just 2020 of should have. There should have already been And maybe there was, but it should have already been a
Yeah,
plan to.
we've been discussing this. We've known that this, with the lack of personnel on that side, the sewer department actually is staffed up. But
Right.
the storm drains are handled by the other side of the house.
Okay, I was
Okay,
thinking it was
and
the
they are
sewer.
severely.
Yes, I know
hurt
the
for
other
help.
department is.
Yeah,
understaffed.
additionally, we've talked about this, well, over the last 6 months or so, about trying to get this program together. Quite frankly, this is an opportunity where we might be able to get some subsidy on getting some of the costs handled. And so I think that there's some urgency created with the fact, look, if we're able to get this done, which needs to be done, but then additionally, hopefully get a subsidy on some of that money back, it's worth taking the time to put it through so that we can hopefully maybe recoup some of the cost. And then going forward, we do have we are putting together, this is another one of the programs we are working on, like this paving and the slurry and those sort of things, to get those to be annual programs you're right, do them at once every 3 or 4 years, so.
Thank you. And thank you, Don. So yeah, I guess it's my mistake because I thought this was sewer. This is parks.
Yes.
Streets.
Yes.
Right.
It's streets department.
I'm thinking
Mhm.
below ground
Yeah.
pipes.
No, going forward, what we had discussed was having the sewer department, because
Gotcha.
like Leo had said, that they have the vac trucks.
Yeah, great.
Are there any other questions? Oh,
Councilmember Draper.
Councilmember Draper.
Thank you. I was just curious if this project was out to bid.
No, because of the emergency
Urgency.
of it, the time lapsing, it would put us into the rainy season.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Emeritus.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. Just to revisit, I think, that question, you're saying that the price of $190 per DI?
Per drainage inlet,
Per drain,
correct.
okay, so that
Mhm.
you're saying that that's a pretty fair price?
That seems to be a pretty fair
Oh,
price.
so you've looked at, like, if we did put this out the bid, we're still getting a good deal, so it's not like we're overpaying for this project?
There are not many contractors, even in the North State area, that do this solely. Our Public Works Supervisor, Wade, had looked into this, and he said that he was hard-pressed to find any other contractors within our North State region that could do this work.
Okay, so it needs to be done, it's a fair price,
Mhm.
and because we could end up having bigger issues downline,
Mhm.
it seems to me like at this point, it's the prudent thing to do, all things considered.
Right.
Other questions, comments, statements? Well, given the situation, and hate to lose our opportunity at least a chance to recover our costs, I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to contract with Duke Sherwood Contracting to vac clean the city's 1,323 drainage inlets in the amount of $251,370.
So moved.
Second that.
Councilmember Draper,
That's a big.
No.
the motion carries with 4 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 absent.
Okay, moving on to reports, discussions, correspondence. Are there any council announcements or reports? Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just dovetail the long-term work of our manager at the SCORE facility, he retired officially
September 30th.
September 30th. Scott Cock. Coach, Coach. Served with the sewer agency for over 20 years and retired as a manager. And I just want to congratulate him on his retirement and his great service to the SCORE facility.
Thank you. And we have an interim manager in place, and he's an 8-year employee that had a grade 4 rating and stepped up to the task. We appreciate that. Glenn, what's his last name?
I'm not gonna, it's a Dutch name. I don't even want to try to mispronounce it. But I would add too that
Starts with a D.
the SCORE facility also has brought on the past manager, Ray Souza to be a consultant during the interim period of time before.
Not a consultant, but an advisor.
Or, excuse me, advisor. He's an advisor. He's an employee of to help with overseeing the facility until a new one is appointed. So.
Great. Is there anyone else who wishes to?
I just briefly.
Councilmember Smith, what'd you say? Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. So along with Golden Valley Bank, the Chamber of Commerce contracts with a firm to independently verify the various economics of our community. And I'm telling you what, on almost every indice, Oroville is doing well. So the Chamber will be soon be putting this out. But I just thought, again, it just kind of confirms what's already been stated, that our community, we're doing all the way from TOT, sales tax, housing. The only area we're struggling in, and that's just, across the country, and that is with employment. It's down, but not as severe as in a lot of other parts of the country. So it's just so a little bright spot, I think, and it's just encouraging to see that Oroville is doing well, and I think that we can pat ourselves on the back a little bit. I think we've done a good job with the community and with the responsibilities that we have here, at least from where I sit. So thank you.
I'd like to comment on your comment about the struggling with employment. Actually, in knowing, most people I know are some type of employer or another, and actually getting people to come to work is a challenge. The government has handed out exorbitant amount of employment benefits and things that made it very comfortable for people not to work. So as an employer who is struggling to find employees, I would say that the official stats and records show that people are unemployed, but the reason for unemployment is certainly not because there's not work.
Just to dovetail on that, Alliance for Workforce Training, that they put out regular job opportunities, and so I think there's 32 pages of job opportunities here locally, but a lot of it is skilled, and that, that's a whole nother conversation about our educational system and what we're doing to prepare even, of course, our local kids, which again is another conversation that I'd like to engage in at some point. But you're out, and I think again there's a lot of evidence to what you're sharing as well. But there are sectors that are struggling, that are challenged. But again, overall, man, we have our work cut out for us. But I think that it's all good opportunities for our future, and for whether it's Butte College and getting our young people prepared for the workplace. But and then our hospital, $200 million project there, and they're going to be looking for a lot of professionals very, very soon. And so, but it's all good challenges at the end of the day.
Well, just to piggyback on your dovetail, if anyone is looking for positions that are unskilled, that are willing to be trained in skilled positions, they can contact me. I can send them in several different directions and start a new life with a new career. So I'm done with that. Are there any other comments? Future agenda items? Administration reports. Bill?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
Tom?
Very quickly, two things. One is we had the community meeting, which basically everybody here participated in, on the Thermalito annexation. The council's not taken any action. I wouldn't expect that to come back to you till after the first of the year for a decision, so I want to emphasize that. But dovetailing on the dovetail on the dovetail, Scott Tandy contacted us and is still very interested in the Wilbur Road annexation and executive-type housing, and continues to pursue that.
I do have a question for you, Tom. Did you ever determine how many chickens?
That was a big, if you didn't follow it, there were probably 20, 30 people in the audience, and
18.
others with questions, but the biggest question probably was how many animals they can have and what type, et cetera, et cetera.
Leo?
Yeah, I just want to share a couple things. Tonight we're spending quite a bit of money, and I just kind of want to share a few things that are going on where the money is going and how they're kicking off. So, from appearance of the town, the goats are doing a great job cleaning up along the side. We're going behind them. The Gateway project now we've got that all eradicated and mowed down, and it looks really terrific. Starting next week. I spoke with the owner and the new buyer of the olive orchard across the way, the 30 acres. And starting Wednesday, we're going to start eradicating that. And they're going to be taking a D10 and taking all the trees out and flattening that and getting that squared away. And then they have a burn consultant coming in who's going to do the burn for all the trees. So that's going to be, we're in the process of getting that squared away.
That's amazing. When's that starting?
Next week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in fact, starting tomorrow, Ron Belzer's getting the tow trucks available to pull out the cars that are in there. Recology's been very gracious. They're going to donate 6 40-yard trailer or dumpsters to get the garbage out. Next Wednesday, Joe is helping with MLEs and whatnot to help eradicate the residents, and then they're coming right behind that with a D10 and start getting it cleaned up. So
Yeah, I guess my question, maybe it's for Joe afterwards, but this is a huge conversation. It's big for the city, but because from what I've heard in estimations, there's upwards to close to 100 people
there's
at some times that are in that area.
I couldn't tell you how many. It's kind of pretty hidden back in there, but it's a maze, and
There's
we're
a lot.
starting to so it's going to be nice to get that. Yeah, I mean, as you know, it's once you flatten those areas and you can see the whole thing, that people don't populate
But
it.
that then from there, just I'm not sure what if there's any plan to help, or to give guidance to those who are in there. And I'm sure it's maybe a conversation I can talk later with Joe, but
Sure.
with you guys. But
and I couldn't tell you how many are in there. Then additionally to those, the sewer project is mobilized this week. They've already started a pipe yard up here across the way. The pipe burst project up on 162, they mobilized today. The solar array down at the courtyard, they've mobilized that, and we have 26 pallets of panels down there. They're working on start construction down there. I met out there with PG&E the other day. Additionally, our RFP for engineering services closes in about a week. And then the CCA ordinance will be coming back to you on the 20th to get that going and have that ratified and everything by the end of the year, so we can be included in that JPA that we were accepted into. So, yes, we are spending a lot of money. It's going to be nice to be getting people complaining that they can't get around town because there's so much road work going on, as opposed to that their cars getting beat up by the bad roads. So those are your Measure U dollars at work, and pretty proud of that. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Joe? Chief, sorry.
So a couple of things. You talked about employment. I'm very happy to report that there's a number of applicants for the police department that we've gone through the various positions. I know last council meeting, we reported out the positions that were posted. Just to give you a few numbers so you know what we're dealing with. The police officer recruit position, which is a position that we will pay for the employee to go to the police academy, 18 applicants for that. We've held the interviews already. We're getting ready to make a couple selections for those two positions. We're testing 14 dispatchers this Friday. We're interviewing 5 potential police officer candidates on Monday, and then we'll do the MLEs after that once I realize how many vacancies we may have in there. So the people are applying. It's nice to see, but it's also a long process, and there is a lot of hoops to jump through before they'll be actually impacting anything in the city. Mr. Thompson, to answer your question, there are a lot of people in that area. I've been told by a couple different employees that it's the most they've ever seen currently living in that olive orchard. I will let you know that there are a number of plans for this week that I've made in preparation for that, contacts with Butte County Behavioral Health, Catalyst, the nonprofit organizations that assist with the unhoused. We're going to have contacts with all of them leading up until next Wednesday, and to try to offer as many services as we can to the individuals that are taking up residency in that area. It's just, we have to do this because the land's been purchased and there's other plans for it.
Absolutely. I mean, I understand, somebody bought it and it's going to be developed. The funds that were for the heap funding for wet shelter, was there everything, I know a lot of money went to Chico, was there ever anything developed to help with a situation like this?
I'm not sure where that funding was allocated.
I can give you a little brief update. So a project that didn't end up not coming to fruition that was allocated from the COC, the HEAP dollars specifically, $790,000 is back on the table for our local agencies, be it the Hope Center, Rescue Mission, Hope of Haven of Hope on Wheels, any of those nonprofits that service that constituency base. I know that there are some plans afoot to reallocate those dollars from this project that ended up being closed out. So that's almost $1 million. So yes, I guess.
I know we've done this before in this area where it's come to cleaning up that area. This will be the first time that it's gone as far as we can. In the past, a number of unhoused individuals have been now taken out to the roadway, but shortly after we leave, they just go back because that's what they've considered their home. That's not going to be an option this time because there won't be the trees, there won't be the area to do that in, and that's why we've made the plans, or I've made the plans to make the contacts with those other agencies. The least we can do is offer the services to try to help the best we can, but at the same token, those individuals will have to accept that those services as well. I can tell you the contacts will be made with the agencies that can provide the services before next Wednesday.
I guess back to my question, is there a current shelter that's been developed from the funds that have already been released? Because I know most of the previous funds went to Chico. So is there, I hate even saying bus them to Chico, although Chico's bused many of them to here. But is there a place to bring these individuals who are in need of assistance for a shelter that the funds that were already released a while back to Chico, is there a place that they can be taken to where they can have shelter?
As it currently stands right now, no HEAP dollars have been invested in any sort of shelter expansion or opening of new shelters in the south part of Butte County. The only ones that exist would be any expansion or dollars that were invested were in the north part of Butte County. So not that we would take anybody and transport them anywhere, but if they were seeking services, they would be more likely to find what they were seeking if they were to travel north. For whatever reason, the COC just has not invested any dollars in South Butte County.
Other than those dollars that I just spoke of that haven't actually been spent yet, but there's plans afoot.
And that's not really fair. They did build one facility here. Mr. Ron Reed did a project, so there is some COC dollars that were spent here, but other than that, we do not have any dollars for shelter expansion or a new shelter at this point.
I just see once the trees are gone, it's going to be very evident in town. There's going to be some relocation, in the community.
There will be, and I think a lot of those will be noticed immediately. I mean, Wednesday afternoon, immediately. And we have, aside from the staff that's working, we have, like Leo said, we've got a number of staff members that are going to be here to assist on that day. And at this point, the plan is to try to get the agencies that offer that support out there to assist with that.
I appreciate that because, we don't want to just say, be heartless,
No.
And we want to, somebody's bought the property, it's somebody's property, and they have the right to do with their property as they so wish. Just trying to do what we can to help the individuals that are there. And so providing services or having resources available to them is great. So I appreciate you working in advance.
We fully understand the impacts and the amount of people that will be impacted, and we're going to do the best we can to provide some help that we can.
I do have a real quick question. Over at Bedrock Park, I noticed a lot of the unhoused, their items were all stored, piled up out there on top of the levee. Was that something that Do you know what's happened with that or what's going on with that?
I don't know if I don't know what you saw first. I don't know if there was some sort of cleanup out there or what took place, but I'm not aware of gather. I'm sorry.
I'm aware of it.
Okay, maybe, I don't know
I
the
don't know
answer.
what, are we calling them homeless, unhoused? What do we call them
Unhoused.
this week? Unhoused. They're the ones who piled that garbage up there.
Okay.
I
just
believe,
wondered-
As one of the property owners that they congregate on my property, Mr. Vice Mayor, you mentioned Heartless. When I go down there and my property is completely trashed and they have fires going, have set my property on fire, I ask them to leave. I've been threatened with knives, they've brandished guns, everything. So this is a real problem. So, yeah, I hope you do have services to help those that want help. But I think you're going to find out about 95% of them just want to be left alone because they enjoy what's going on. It's, they're thriving in this nomadic subculture. So that trash is from them. Our river looks nice.
I was gonna say, I wasn't aware of anything that the police department had involved in that.
Okay, I was just kind of curious, yeah. And just in my survey of our businesses, it is the #1 issue, and just in my current survey. So it is something we definitely are going to have to discuss, I think, further at some point when it's agendized or whatever. But it's a big deal.
No, and that's
You
the
know.
reason why I even mentioned it when Leo brought it up to me, because it's #1 issue, and we're now, it's going to be felt
Yeah.
in the community when the place where many of them some of them stay, they're not going to be staying there anymore. So it's going to be highlighted even more so for the community.
Is that it?
That's all I
Thank
got,
you.
sir. Thank you.
Dawn?
Hello again. I have several items. Regarding our development impact fee report, I reported to you last time that we would have a secondary draft. As staff reviewed the first draft, we were not satisfied with the numbers presented. We've given them some information and they've presented us with a secondary draft this week. And so staff will be reviewing that and we hope to have that final draft come to council November. Also for our municipal services review, we anticipate receiving the draft of that document this week for staff to review and present to council also in November. I'd like to report that LAFCO has approved the annexation of South Lincoln. And then staff will do some cleanup documentation and finalize that annexation here in the coming months. For Maverick Fueling Station, we have received their plans. They're in review and they're hoping to break ground as soon as we give them the go-ahead. For the municipal auditorium, those plans are still currently in progress. And so we hope to have that RFP out to have those accessible bathrooms updated as well as the accessibility upgrades for the exterior portion of the auditorium. The docents, being that the museums have been closed, they have been in progress on cleaning out our Chinese Temple Annex building or the Girdler building. Many of the items that are in that building were donated or given to the city previously. They have gone through all those items, sorted them. What can be placed in the museums has been placed in the museums. And what isn't deemed in good condition or meeting the criteria of those museums is actually going to be deassessed by the Park Commission, and we have decided to put them up in an estate auction. And so whatever proceeds from that estate auction would come back to the city. Also, with the recent opening of available positions, we are going to be conducting interviews for the Parks and Streets Division. So lots of qualified applicants have applied for those positions, so we're excited for that. And also P31 has started their work on the tree trimming within the city, and they're doing a great job. So just a quick update for you.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney? Nothing? Well, with that, this concludes the meeting of October 6, 2020. And we will adjourn until October 20th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m.